Okay, let's give a brief update on my Raffo Belva. Anybody with the patience to watch my series of videos, I've done about a dozen or 10 or so from the beginning of the rebuild when I took it off the road in 2009. It's now 2018. The good news is that it's got its MOT, and this is one of the few occasions when I've driven it about 6 miles, so it'll be about a 15-mile round trip. That's as far as I want to take it at the moment, because I've still got a lot of work to do. For instance, I designed these openings to take projector lamps, and obviously I've got to seal them above and below, seal them from water, etc. I'm having difficulty getting the gull wing doors to fit correctly, especially the driver's door. I just cannot get it flush, and the reason it's no longer flush is because one of the drastic modifications I did was I cut off the back body. There's actually a very fine line here, and it goes right inside, discreetly inside the bodywork, and then it's bolted. It takes about 5 minutes to take off completely the rear section, which gives you 100% access to the serious bits, which is the engine. John Raffo, who designed this, fantastic stylist, and also knew his stuff in terms of a very robust chassis, terrific road holding, very solid build. But one thing he sacrificed was the ability to get at the engine without taking the whole body off. So this is what I bring to the party. I think this is this Raffo number 7 out of about 8. I've taken the driver's side plastic window out because there's no opening mechanism, and I actually locked myself in a few weeks ago. I got into a bit of a panic because my little dog was right by the car tethered up and I could not get out. To cut a long story short, I didn't have my key with me. Stupidly got in, was messing around with the door solenoids, but fortunately managed to mechanically free the passenger door. So I was very lucky there. Repainting this car will be the very last thing. I put in a lithium battery. I've had to put it in down there rather than flopping around here before. What else can I say? It's a beautiful car, I'm sure you'd agree. I feel very fortunate. I mean, it looks a lot more expensive than it really is, and it's a real project. I want to get it right. And so one of the things I'll be doing, in fact, one of the things I have done, is I've designed and made this sculpted plywood dashboard together with a steering wheel cover, which will have a remote parrot screen, which will link up to my iPhone. And then it's got a temporary MDF dashboard top at the moment. That's going to be covered in a leatherette, a grey leatherette. I've already built, I don't know whether you can see it, this little this cover. It's made out of MDF, bit of fiberglass, and covered, sprayed with a stone paint and then a black paint on top to give it a kind of textured plastic look. And that has a couple of stalks. One is the horn, and the other one, you can't really see, is the mode change on the, whoops, where is it? Got the wrong one. On the digital dash. A lot of work still to do, but it is drivable, this car. I'm so busy with making videos for YouTube that take hours and hours, if not days, to edit. I must be mad. Plus all the various other projects I've got going on, the ebooks I make, they all take a colossal amount of time. I'm not complaining, but I haven't had a holiday since 2006. I'm not complaining because clearly I'm a bit of a workaholic. So I am looking forward to the day when I'll really enjoy the fruits, the fruits of this car. Now my friend invited me to take some apples to boil up and cook, but unfortunately nature has got to them first because it's early November and and it's what we call the Fall. But it's a terrific car. I might possibly put slightly bigger wheels on because I just feel the openings here are not quite visually as attractive as they might be. So I'll either extend the body, the wings, and that will be quite a task to follow the curves, or put a slightly bigger wheel in. But I must say the advantage of these tyres, these old-fashioned tyres, trying to see what the depth is, 195 by 50R, they're not too low profile. Obviously the lower the profile you go, the harder the ride, and this already handles like a go-kart. It's lucky at my age I don't have false teeth, otherwise I'd lose them. Very solid fiberglass body. The fact it's got a Q plate probably limits the value, but I don't care. It's a piece of sculpture, this car, and some of you might think I'm absolutely mad putting a smaller engine in. It did have a 2-litre engine and it was pretty fast. Well, I replaced it with a 1.25, and the reason being I wanted to put a lump in, a powertrain in under 1500cc to keep my road tax bill down, because I've got about 6 vehicles and I've got to work within a budget, you know, to enjoy or to indulge my hobby. It's a good job I'm not married. You know what the wife would say? The first thing she would say is, oh, sell that bloody thing, get something practical. You see, boys, the girls will eventually spoil your fun. I'm now going to have lots of complaints from women saying, rubbish, rubbish. Hope I'm wrong. But I'm yet to see a woman in Britain driving a really unusual car like this. And that's the thing, most people go for brands, and I can tell you with hand on heart, if I could afford to, I wouldn't drive a Porsche. If I could afford to, I wouldn't drive a Lamborghini. Now, I could afford to buy a second-hand Lotus Elise, and that's the nearest to this. They're very, very similar cars. But the added satisfaction that I customised this, that at the end of the day, when I finished all the modifications I'm doing, it's hopefully going to be a real wow car that will inspire other people. And you know what? Inspire people to use their hands. I heard on the radio this morning that there's a fear that surgeons are losing their skills because they're not using their hands enough. We all know that everybody uses their thumbs on mobile phones, but it's a worrying thing, and this is one of the reasons I own this, is flying an old-fashioned flag that A, I'm British, although this was designed by a half Lancastrian and a half Italian. It is a British car, it's a British mark, and I want to encourage people to use their hands. And not just older people who are privileged because they're retired or they've got the money, but young people. And I was so lucky to be brought up in an age, I had about a dozen minis, and there was a whole aftermarket industry of bits you could buy, engines, Ozzelli engines, Downton engines, to soup up a Mini. And this is one of the last bastions of automotive engineering design. And if the EU had its way, it would probably ban cars like this as not being conformist enough. So what can I say? I just wish there were more hours in the day that I could tackle some of the outstanding things that need doing. So basically you have to take one small task at a time and focus on that and not be overwhelmed by the magnitude of what needs doing. And it's no 5-minute job. The fact that this car was off the road in 2009, youngsters helping me, we've literally had to rewire it. You know, we've done a transplant from a Ford Fiesta which I drove, so I knew the engine was okay, and we transferred all the electrics, and that created a nightmare because some of the electrics are complaining that they're in a different car, and so, you know, the ECU shuts down, or nightmare. I was going to put a Series A, I think it is, Series A? No, a Rover 1470 and very, very pokey for under 1500cc, but I kind of got put off by the head gasket problems. It's the same engine in some of the earlier Lotus Elises. What else can I say? There's a lot to do. I've got the soundproofing to do. I've got the insulation of this to do. Let's just open the door. I need the key. Need the key to demobilize it. And then, there we are. Open up the door. I've got all this sort of thing to do. I'm going to put the same plywood. I've already built the plywood. This is taped on temporarily, so I've got my solenoids for the doors. All this is going to be covered in leatherette. All this as well. I'm going to double glaze this and add extra soundproofing, because sound, major problem. In the door openings, the gull-wing doors, I've already built the speakers. The radio is going to go in there, in that hole in there. I've already got the radio. I've tested everything, you know, fantastic, powerful radio, all controlled from this little Parrot remote on the steering wheel. There we are. So I'm kind of using old and new technology. You know, the fact I've used the original analog circular instruments and blended them in with digital. That's a digital dash there, which has got an incredible number of permutations as to how you use it. Now you can see I've got a bit of curved plywood there that I've got to finish off flush with the dashboard itself, and then that will sit underneath the leather, which will be wrapped around a raised edge on this. So there's one heck of a lot still to do. There's all the instruments. These are just temporary stickers that look really crude at the moment. I'll do those in clear transfers, but they're all matching black. You see, there's no chrome, it's all black and wood, or black and grey. So it's rather like the furniture that I design and make. It's using tradition, but moving tradition on, using old and new. And that's the way I see it with a car like this. I mean, even the rear lenses are off a bus. They're pretty crude, but there's a kind of simplicity to it. And at the moment I've got no exhaust, no silencer, I mean, because I've got to get a custom bend so that the silencer can be like the original one, which is tucked up neatly below the rear valance. In fact, I'm going to start the car up just to see how noisy it is. There you are. There's a nice purr to the engine. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just drive down the lane. I'm not really geared up with the camera, so I'm going to have to hold it with one hand. The gear change is fantastic, very smooth, very direct, very firm. And, you know, we spent hours and hours trying to work out the linkage with the new engine in. Now, I do have a problem with the engine racing, and I just cannot get even the local garage to sort that out. It's something to do with the ECU being confused by something. So that's a big one I've got to sort out, and I'm just not taking it any further than about 5 miles for various reasons. One is that the tyres are over 10 years old, and even though they pass the MOT, I'm just not going to risk such an old tyre that hasn't been used in nearly 10 years. And the other thing is the tracking needs doing. There's lots of little things that need doing, but I'll tell you something, the road holding of this is fantastic. I wouldn't be putting so much labour and effort and sweat and passion into this car if I didn't think it was worth it. And as I say, it's a question of my finding time to work on it. Let's look at those instruments. Oil pressure is healthy, it's not overheating. There's an awful lot to sort out, and it's such a a far cry from a modern mass-produced car. You know, a modern mass-produced car has got everything sorted, every last rattle and vibration. We're totally spoiled. I mean, you know, when I think of my first motorbike and my first car, a Mini, we've come such a long way. So that's it. I'm hoping to find time to complete these series of videos on the restoration of my Raffo Belva. This is an update in November 2018.